Greetings, everybody. Today we are going to discuss an issue between Ron Desantis and Donald Trump. In particular, what's likely to happen between now and 2024 and what the potential ramifications are. The media has been obsessed analyzing and prognosticating whether DeSantis will run, can he unseat Donald Trump when it comes to the nomination, and whether he is the future of the Republican Party, and so on. As with prior videos on this channel, we are not going to regurgitate the points that everybody else is talking about. Rather, I want to bring something new to your attention, something which should be a part of the analysis. And if you want to hear more about topics that not everyone is talking about, even though they are relevant, because outside the most common points, there are a lot of other important points that get omitted, feel free to subscribe and tag along, because there will be a lot more to discuss over the remaining couple of years. You have probably heard a lot about the concept, the grand chessboard, and whether that's international, whether that's domestic, doesn't matter. For the purpose of this discussion, let's define the terms Republican and Democrat, which will not be party affiliation. We'll just say Republican. Let's call everyone who is going to vote Republican in the 2024 election, and Democrat, everyone who is going to vote Democrat in the 2024 election. And if you stay home and don't vote, then a decision will be made for you by the remaining voters. So if the Republicans win and you don't vote, then we'll deem you a Republican. If the Democrats win and you haven't voted, then we'll deem you a Democrat. Now, with that out of the way, let's see. In chess, when you have a piece on the board, it occupies its own square and exerts control over a number of squares. Every time you make a move, you commit the piece to a new location, you threaten new squares, but also you leave the squares behind, those that you no longer control. So when you choose, let's say, to run for a president, even though you're a governor now who just won with almost 20% in your state, you threaten to gain something, which is potentially the presidency, but you leave something behind, which is the state that was supporting you, and you're leaving a power vacuum that may or may not be filled with somebody who will continue the same policies. Now, what are the pieces? Of course, President Donald Trump, who declared that he is interested in winning the presidency a second time. And we have Ron DeSantis, who just had a resounding victory in Florida. Actually, even as we speak now, mid-November 2022, people are still scratching their heads. How come the Republican Party outperformed so well in the midterms in Florida and not nearly as well in many other states? And people are still speculating, and the reasons remain not fully squared out. But back to the point. If, let's assume you're a Democrat and you want just to see, you believe that for the best of the country, there should be as few Republicans as possible in high places. What do you want? What are you going to proceed here? We have two pieces on the chessboard. We have Donald Trump and you have Ron DeSantis. Ideally, you want to get the pieces off the board. How can that happen without resorting to anything illegal? Well, one way you can do it is to move DeSantis away from Florida, so leave the space behind and moving to a new position, that of a presidential contender. And yes, let's assume he wins the nomination. So Donald Trump gets knocked out, and everyone knows after winning a presidency, usually you don't run for anything else. So if Donald Trump loses the nomination, chances are he'll be completely out of the game because he'll be too old to do anything 4 years from now. And even his core supporters most likely will say, listen, that too much is too much. So DeSantis runs, he knocks Donald Trump on the primary, and Donald Trump is boom off the board. let's keep in mind that whether you like Donald Trump or not, he was the reason why the Republican Party got such a success in 2016, and there were numerous numerous members of Congress who found their way in Congress because they got affected by the Trump train, even though they had expected to lose. And actually, this explains some of the interesting behavior of Congress shortly after President Trump got elected. But let's get back to the point. So DeSantis knocks Trump. Trump is out of the way. And now, in elections, no matter what, there is never 100% chance of doing something. So DeSantis has a chance to lose once he gets the nomination, even if people believe, and actually that's something important to keep in mind. There are voices saying, oh, DeSantis has greater chances than Donald Trump to win the presidency, therefore he should knock Trump out. Yes, he has, even if that's true, even if he has greater chance to win the presidency, he still has a chance to lose. And one of the possible outcomes is DeSantis loses Florida by giving it up and tries to run for the presidency and then loses the presidency, in which case you had both big Republican pieces knocked off the board. Trump defeated in the primary and then DeSantis defeated in the general election. So as a Democrat, that is what you would want. And now conversely, as a Republican, keep in mind we define Republican as, for this particular discussion, somebody who is going to vote Republican in 2024. As a Republican, that would be your nightmare scenario. Instead of having two chess pieces, each guarding its own territory, and they even, let's say, supporting each other, like a bishop and rook can support each other on a chessboard. I mean, one supports the other. You may end up losing both. So when you are analyzing who has the higher chance to win, keep in mind that the other consideration is there is also the chance to lose. And sometimes you better go with your second best choice in the presidential elections if you already have firmly secured the state, which, as some other commentators have said, Florida can serve as example to other Republican governors to apply similar policies and to tell and to demonstrate to their constituents that they mean business. Now people can analyze why DeSantis won so much. Is it just because the election process was different than that of some other states, or whether he demonstrated that he meant business by sponsoring bills in the legislature of the state of Florida that coincided with the declared position of Governor DeSantis, which it is important for politicians to follow on what they say, and not all of them do. And also his stance against Walt Disney, which, regardless of where you stand on the issues that Disney attempted to get involved in, it was an interesting situation when a private corporation, which is outside the chain of command of a state, attempted to meddle in state affairs beyond just beyond assuming the role of a concerned citizen. And DeSantis came back now with a firm response, and that probably also solidified his base. So to recap, if Trump runs alone for the presidency and DeSantis stays in Florida, Republicans get two pieces on the chessboard. Whether they're in their ideal places in the moment, that remains to be seen. However, if you disturb this configuration, you will, even in the best case scenario for, let's say you want DeSantis to knock Trump, in that so-called best case scenario, you have only one piece left, down from two. And if DeSantis loses, then you have 0 down from 2. So before analyzing any further and splitting hairs who is more presidential and who is better spoken and what voters are willing to swallow, you may think twice if you want to remove DeSantis from Florida right after he scores such a win. Let's keep in mind also that if he does that, his voters especially those who probably voted Republican for a first time in their lives, may not be happy in supporting another Republican who will be running for the governor position there. And yet, we haven't yet fully examined the remainder of the Republican field, and somebody else may show up who actually may claim the presidency, and if he wins fair and square while DeSantis remains in Florida, you may still end up with having two pieces on the board. So my concern is that we should not sacrifice DeSantis in hope that he will do better than Trump, because that makes us lose too many pieces on the board if you look from the Republican side. And of course, if you are on the Democrat side, that's exactly what you want. You want to see Republican pieces taking each other on the chessboard, so while there is almost nobody left standing. And with that, we'll see you in the next video.